Something quietly happened in the expat world over the last 18 months. People who had lived in Thailand for 3, 5, even 10 years, people who loved the country started leaving. Not because of the food, not because of the weather, and not because they ran out of things to do. They left because the Thailand they moved to no longer exists, and a lot of them ended up in Vietnam. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what changed, why Vietnam is pulling people in right now, and most importantly, what nobody is telling you about making that move. Because there are traps on both sides of this conversation, and I want you to walk away actually informed. Stay with me, because the visa section alone could save you from a very expensive mistake. Let's start with the honest picture of what Thailand used to be for foreigners. For decades, Thailand ran on an unofficial system that worked for everyone. You'd fly in, get 30 or 60 days stamp-free, extended at a local immigration office, then hop across the border to Malaysia or Cambodia for a few hours and come back with a fresh stamp. Rinse and repeat. People lived in Chiang Mai, Bangkok, and Phuket for years, sometimes indefinitely, on nothing more than tourist entries. It was informal, it was convenient, and almost everyone was doing it. That era is over. In November 2025, Thai immigration announced a significant crackdown on exactly this behavior. Extensions are now limited. Officers at land borders are actively screening for repeat entries that look more like long-term residents than genuine tourism. And if your travel pattern suggests you've been living in Thailand on a tourist visa, you can be denied entry, even if you've entered the same way dozens of times before. This isn't just about border runs. Immigration raids have become more frequent in major expat hubs: Phuket, Koh Samui, and Pattaya. Authorities are cross-checking databases, and the 90-day reporting requirement, which many long-term residents used to treat casually, is now being enforced much more seriously. Miss a report, and you could face fines or a review of your entire visa status. But here's the thing that really got people's attention. And this is the part most YouTube videos aren't talking about clearly. The cost of living in Thailand isn't what it used to be. Bangkok rents in popular expat neighborhoods climbed 8 to 12% year on year in 2024 and 2025. A night out at a quality restaurant in Bangkok now compares to prices you'd see in a mid-tier European city. The cheap Thailand story, the one that made it famous in expat circles, is still partly true. But only if you're living modestly in the suburbs or a secondary city. And then there's the tax situation, which deserves its own section, because it is genuinely important. This is the part that caused a real panic in the expat community. Starting January 1st, 2024, Thailand changed how it treats foreign income. Under the old rules, if you earned money abroad and waited until the following year to bring it into Thailand, it wasn't taxed. That was the legal strategy most retirees, investors, and remote workers used without even thinking about it. That loophole is now closed. Under the new rule, if you are a Thai tax resident, meaning you spend 180 days or more per year in Thailand, any foreign income you bring into the country can now be subject to Thai personal income tax, regardless of when you earned it. The tax rates run from 5% up to 35% on higher amounts. One survey found that 55% of expats considered leaving after this announcement. Now, there is some relief being discussed. The Thai Revenue Department has proposed a 2-year grace period, meaning income earned in 2025 and brought into Thailand within the same year or the year after would be exempt. But as of early 2026, that proposal had not been formally enacted into law. It is still in draft form, so you cannot rely on it until it is officially passed. This doesn't mean Thailand is suddenly unlivable for foreigners. If you qualify for the long-term resident visa, which requires passive income of at least $80,000 per year, you get significant tax benefits that most normal expats don't. And Thailand has tax treaties with many countries that may reduce your liability. But for the average digital nomad, remote worker, or retiree who was casually living in Thailand without thinking much about tax compliance, the landscape has completely shifted. The informal, easy Thailand is gone. The new Thailand rewards people who plan properly and penalizes people who wing it. And that is exactly why a lot of people started looking south. Vietnam has been quietly building its case for years, but in 2025 and into 2026, the numbers started to speak for themselves. For 3 consecutive years, Vietnam has ranked #1 globally for personal finance in the Internation's Expat Insider Survey. The largest annual expat survey in the world, 77% of expats in Vietnam rate the cost of living favorably. That is not a small margin. Let's put real numbers on this. A modern 1-bedroom apartment in a good area of Ho Chi Minh City, District 1, District 2, or Thao Dien runs about $450 to $750 per month. Similar quality in Bangkok costs $600 to $900. A full meal of po cho or banh mai from a good local spot costs $2 to $3. Street food pad Thai in Bangkok is $3 to $4. Western-style food, brunch, and dining out are consistently 20 to 30% cheaper in Vietnam's major cities compared to Thailand's. Most expats living comfortably in Vietnam report monthly expenses between $1,000 and $1,500. The same lifestyle in Bangkok or Chiang Mai typically runs $1,500 to $2,500. On the income side, Vietnam does not currently have the same aggressive foreign income tax framework that Thailand introduced in 2024. If you are not employed by a Vietnamese company and you are not a tax resident under Vietnamese law, your overseas income generally stays outside the Vietnamese tax system. That distinction matters enormously for remote workers and passive income earners, and the country is genuinely growing fast. Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi both have expanding co-working infrastructure, international restaurants, and expat communities that are larger than most people realize. Da Nang has gone from a quiet coastal city to one of the most talked about digital nomad destinations in Southeast Asia. The energy is different from Thailand, less polished, more raw, more frontier, and for a certain kind of expat, that is exactly the appeal. But before you start researching flights and apartment listings, there is something you need to hear first. Because the visa situation in Vietnam is one of the most misunderstood topics in this entire conversation. And getting it wrong is not a small mistake. It can mean a denied entry, a forced departure, or a lease you can't legally stay in. Let me break it down clearly. Vietnam's visa system looks simple from the outside. And for a short visit, it genuinely is. Most nationalities can apply for a 90-day e-visa online. It costs around $25, it's available at 83 international airports and land borders, and it covers both single and multiple entries within that 90-day window. For countries like Germany, France, the United Kingdom, Russia, Japan, and South Korea. There's also a 45-day visa-free entry that requires no application at all. That all sounds great. Here's where it gets complicated. Vietnam does not have an official digital nomad visa, and it does not have a retirement visa, and the long-term stay options that do exist require either a work permit from a Vietnamese employer, a business visa sponsored by a Vietnamese company, or setting up your own legal business entity in the country. For people planning to stay 6 months, a year, or longer, the most common strategy is the 90-day e-visa. Combined with border runs, you leave Vietnam, usually to Cambodia, in Thailand, or Laos, get a new stamp, and re-enter. This still works as of 2026, but Vietnamese immigration has been watching repeat entries more carefully. And unlike Thailand, there are no officially publicized run limits yet. The practical risk is that if you look like someone who is living in Vietnam on a permanent tourist basis, you can be questioned or refused. This is the single most common mistake. New relocators make finding an apartment before confirming how long they can legally stay. If you are serious about staying long-term, the more sustainable options are a business visa, known as a DN visa, sponsored by a Vietnamese company, or setting up a local LLC, which lets you sponsor your own work permit. That process takes 2 to 4 months and requires registered capital, typically starting around $10,000 to $50,000 depending on your business type. It is not impossible, but it requires planning and usually the help of a local legal firm. The honest summary, Vietnam is easier to enter than Thailand right now, but it is harder to stay legally for extended periods without proper structure. If your plan is to show up and figure it out as you go, you will eventually run into a wall. Plan before you pack. Now let's talk about where to actually go, and be specific about it, because the 3 main expat cities in Vietnam are genuinely different experiences. Ho Chi Minh City is the economic engine. It is loud, fast, ambitious, and never quiet. If you are starting a business, doing deal making, or want the biggest international food and nightlife scene in the country, this is your city. Expats here tend to be younger, entrepreneurial, and comfortable with chaos. Monthly costs sit around $1,200 to $1,800 for a comfortable lifestyle. Hanoi is a different pace entirely. The capital has a cooler climate, a more traditional Vietnamese character, and for a lot of people, a calmer daily rhythm. Rents are slightly cheaper than Ho Chi Minh City, and the food scene, particularly in the Old Quarter, is exceptional. It attracts expats who want to immerse themselves more deeply in Vietnamese culture rather than live in an international bubble. Da Nang is the one most people end up recommending after they've tried all 3. It sits on a beautiful stretch of coast. The city is clean and well organized by Vietnamese standards, and it has the fastest growing expat and digital nomad infrastructure in the country. You get beach access, a genuine city with international restaurants and co-working spaces, and monthly costs that are meaningfully lower. Most people live well here on $900 to $1,300 per month. The expat community is tight-knit and friendly to newcomers. If you are coming from Thailand and wondering where to land first, Da Nang is the most common answer for a reason. Let's be honest about the trade-offs, because any video that only tells you the good news isn't actually helping you. Healthcare is the biggest practical concern. Vietnam has international standard hospitals in the major cities, FV Hospital and Vinmec in Ho Chi Minh City, and similar facilities in Hanoi and Da Nang, with English-speaking doctors and modern equipment. But public hospitals are severely overcrowded, with limited English and long wait times for anything complex or serious. A significant number of expats still travel to Bangkok or Singapore, adding considerable cost. Good expat health insurance is not optional here. Budget $1,300 to $3,200 per year for comprehensive coverage. Internet censorship is a real daily inconvenience. Facebook, Google, and most major platforms work. But a number of sites are blocked, and speeds can be inconsistent outside the major cities. Most expats run a VPN as a basic cost of living. It is not a deal breaker, but it is something you adapt to. Property is straightforward on the surface and complicated underneath. Foreigners can own apartments in Vietnam, but only in buildings where total foreign ownership doesn't exceed 30% of units. You cannot own land. Most legal advisors recommend renting for at least the first year before committing to any purchase. The language gap is also bigger than in Thailand. English is spoken widely in the hospitality and tech sectors in the big cities. But outside of that, daily life dealing with landlords, government offices, and local markets requires either a local contact or a lot of patience with translation apps, and the adjustment period is real. Moving to Vietnam is not a lifestyle upgrade you feel immediately. Most expats say it takes 3 to 6 months before the novelty wears off and the real rhythm of the place reveals itself. Here is the honest decision framework. Vietnam makes sense if you are a remote worker or freelancer earning income from outside Southeast Asia. Your budget is under $2,000 per month and you want to maximize quality of life. You are flexible and enjoy navigating a less polished environment. And you are willing to set up a proper long-term visa structure rather than wing it on rolling tourist entries. Thailand still makes sense if you have higher income. and qualify for the Destination Thailand visa or the long-term resident visa. You have children and need access to a strong international school system. Thailand has over 200 international schools compared to about 50 in Vietnam. You need reliable access to high-quality healthcare without traveling internationally. Or you genuinely prefer a more established and internationally familiar expat infrastructure. The reality is that Thailand didn't get bad, it got more selective. The people who are struggling are the ones who relied on gray area workarounds that no longer work. If you approach Thailand correctly with the right visa, proper tax planning, and realistic cost expectations, it is still one of the most compelling places in the world to live. But if your budget is tight, your income comes from overseas, and you want the feeling of a place still on the rise, Vietnam in 2026 is a serious, real alternative that is no longer a hidden secret. Here's what it comes down to. Thailand changed the rules. Not dramatically, but enough that the old playbook stopped working. The visa-run lifestyle is gone, the tax situation is more complex, and the cost of living has crept up in ways that erode the value proposition for expats on modest budgets. Vietnam stepped into that gap with lower costs, a simpler entry system for short stays, and an energy that feels like Bangkok did 15 years ago. But Vietnam is not a loophole. It is a real place with real paperwork, real trade-offs, and real visa requirements. The people who do best there are the ones who treat it seriously from day one, not as a cheap escape, but as a deliberate choice they've actually planned for. If you want to dig deeper, I have a full breakdown of the Vietnam e-visa process and the long-term stay options in a separate video. Link is in the description. And if this video helped you, think more clearly about this decision. A like and a subscribe means I can keep making this kind of research-backed content for you. See you in the next one.